I'm going to now go through sort of a demonstration for how to use Google Meet. I'll pause occasionally to take questions, but feel free to put them in the chat whenever you like. So the first things first is Google Meet, as I mentioned, is a website, and you just go to meet.google.com in your web browser, like you see in the top left of the screen here. And this is what it looks like if you are already signed in, but just in case you're not signed in, when you, let me try that again. When you first come to Google Meet, it might look like this if you're not signed into your Google account. So the first thing you do need to do is press sign in the top right here, and then go ahead and sign into your Google account. And once you sign into your Google account, the screen looks more or less the same. So every single time you're basically going to start with new meeting if you're creating or hosting a meeting. If you're joining someone else's meeting, they can give you a link you can click on that will take you straight to it, or they might give you a code, in which case you would type the code in where it says to enter the code. But for the most part, when you're starting a meeting, we're going to press new meeting. So it presents us three options: create a meeting for later, start an instant meeting, or schedule in Google Calendar. I'm going to go over this schedule in Google Calendar option closer to the end. And the difference between these first two is pretty simple. So the first one looks more like what you'd probably be used to for Zoom. When you click on this option, it gives you a Meet link. So this is just like a Zoom link. You could copy this link and send it out to any of whoever you want to join your meeting, and then you guys can join it whenever you want. As long as you coordinate to all join the link at the same time, you'll all be in the same meeting. So this link is private to you, and you can send it out to whoever you like, and then say you can write them an email and say, hey, join this meeting Monday at 6 for our class, and that would be that. If you're trying to start a meeting right here and now, you just press start an instant meeting. That's what I'm going to do right now so I can continue demonstrating, but typically you would do one of the other two options when you're scheduling it in advance. So I started the instant meeting, and this is what a Google meeting looks like. You'll notice that it looks very similar to Zoom for the most part. There are some differences. Firstly, the icons look different and they're in slightly different spots. And it is, again, it's in my Google Chrome browser. You can see I'm still at a website. Like I can switch tabs up here to different websites. It's not a separate app like Zoom is. So what I'm going to do for a minute, I'm going to turn off my camera in Zoom so that I can turn it on in Google Meet. So that way the meeting looks kind of normal. Okay, so you should see me actually a lot bigger than you did before, which is fine. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to join this meeting from my phone at the same time. And that will just allow us to have two participants in this meeting so you can sort of see what a real meeting is like. Uh-huh. Okay, so here you go. Here's an example. So when someone tries to join your meeting, just like Zoom, there's like a waiting room concept. I can actually, let's see if this works. We're gonna get really advanced here. On my phone, no, you can't see it. Okay. On my phone, when I tried to join the meeting, it says you're in the waiting room. And then as the host, as you guys can see on my screen, it's saying, okay, would you like to admit them? So I'm going to admit them. And then it starts the meeting, or I'm in the meeting. You guys can look at the duck. So now we have two people in this meeting. So I'll start showing you some features of Google Meet. I'll do that. Okay, so first thing is down here at the bottom. You have the same buttons you'd expect in Zoom. You have your mute button, you have your camera button, this is your share screen button, the fourth button. They call it present in Google, but it's the same concept as sharing your screen. And you have some more options that you can go through, and we will talk about some of them. This is cool. This is unique to to Google, and I actually really like it. It's captions. And the captions, they're auto-generated, so it's not perfect. But there's like an AI that decides what you're saying and puts it so everyone can see, or anyone who wants can read them. And you can see right now that it's actually pretty accurate at what I'm saying. So this is useful if you have any students who are hard of hearing, or if you have your volume turned down. I don't know, I'm a big fan. It's even putting commas in periods. Okay, so there's a captions feature. But let me just see if we're on track. Okay, so some more important things for teaching. When you're with a bunch of students, the one thing, we've talked about this in Zoom before. You know how Zoom in the top right or left or so, there's like an option to change the layout of the speakers. You could change it to speaker view or gallery view or something like that. So Google Meet has those same options, but they're a little more confusing. So you click on this more options, the three dots here, and then you press change layout, and they have tiled, which is like a grid. And then within the grid, you can change how many people you want to see at a time. So you can see all 49 grid, up to 49 on my screen, or I can do up to 9 or whatever I like, in like a grid format. So if you drag this slider, so say you're in a 30-person meeting and you only have 9, you're only displaying 9 at a time, there'll just be multiple pages that you can scroll through if you want to see more people. The reason you might want to keep this smaller is if in a large meeting, is if you have you want to keep people bigger on your screen, or if your computer can't handle loading 20 videos at once. For smaller meetings, this doesn't really matter. It'll just kind of make it work. And auto is generally where you're going to pick, but sometimes you want something. Spotlight will be only one person at a time, and it'll just change it to whoever is speaking. And sidebar is more like Zoom's speaker view, where it changes it to whoever is speaking, but on the right-hand side, there'll be small pictures of whoever isn't speaking. So you could still see a few people at once. The sidebar is great for like when I was doing all of my high school virtually last year, we did this. I'd use the sidebars. So the teacher would be big, and then I could still see my other students, fellow classmates on the right side. So just some options there. When you want to change the layout, it's in a different spot with Google. It's under more options and then change layout. There's also full screen, which does exactly what you would think. Yeah, more or less that's about it. We'll talk about whiteboarding a little bit later. The next thing, okay, the next thing is managing the meeting. So this is something that for any of you who may have run Zoom meetings before, it's pretty important to be able to have some control as the host over your participants, especially if they're not extremely good at technology, or maybe if they're English is their second language, or if they're younger children. It's important to be able to mute them, to be able to take some actions on their behalf. So the way you do that in Google is on the right-hand side in the corner down here where my mouse is moving. There are a few options. So we'll go through each one. This first one is just the meeting details, they call it. So this is where you could see your meeting link and you could send it to people if you needed to. The second one is what Zoom calls participants and Google calls show everyone. It's just like the people screen. You can see all the people who are in the meeting. You can go ahead, you can remove them, you can mute them. You can mute them if you want to mute them. You can pin them to your screen. I'm sure you're used to that. Yeah, so those are your options there. The other tab that's important is the very last one, which is the host controls. So the host controls are off by default, but if you turn them on, it gives you all these extra options. So I don't know why they do that, but there's a big switch up here, and you press on, then all of these switches are activated and you can change them. So you can turn on and off if other people are allowed to turn on their video. So I just did that, and now no one is allowed to have video in this meeting, or no one is allowed to speak except me, or no one is allowed to use the chat except me, or no one is allowed to share their screen except me. So Zoom has these options as well. Zoom has a few more options, but this is what Google gives you. So these are some controls that you have over on the right-hand side. And you just have to make sure to flip this top switch first. It's kind of like an easy, hey, I don't want to worry about all of that right now. Or yes, I do want to worry about that stuff. If you're in meeting with a few friends, you probably can leave it off, and they'll tell you. If you're sure everyone will act responsibly, you can turn that off. But for the most part, it doesn't hurt to keep it on and then use it only when you need to. Okay, I'm going to pause here if there are any questions. Make sure you guys can still hear me, still see me. We're all good. See one question in the chat.
I can monitor the chat for, right? So in Zoom, we can create several recurring meetings. Is it the same in Google Meet?
Yes, you can. And it's a little bit trickier because you have to do it through Google Calendar, but we will do that soon.
Great. Great.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, my meetings sometimes run more than 1 hour.
So as far as I know, there's no real option other than paying for a premium subscription for that. You can always, if the meeting goes longer than an hour, you can always let the meeting end and then create a new one right away. There's no limit to how many meetings you create. They'll just kick you out after 60 minutes.
Okay, you can do that in Zoom too, I understand.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is there breakout rooms?
Unfortunately, breakout rooms are a premium feature on Google Meet, so you would have to buy one of their plans.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's a big feature that a lot of our tutors use. Okay.
Yeah, that is a little bit unfortunate.
Sid, can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Yeah, last week I did a teaching session for 2 hours using Google Meet. And I was not interrupted after 1 hour. And then when I went on their website, I saw that their free product allows one-on-one teaching for 24 hours. The 60-minute limit is only if you have more than 2 people.
Yes, that is correct. And that applies to Zoom as well, though. Less than 3 people, and there's little to no limit on the length of meetings. So yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks, Brian. That's good to know.
Yeah, that the Zoom has created the 40-minute limit for one-on-one.
Oh, have they?
Yes, that.
Oh,
because that's what raised my alarm 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I was not aware.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, their meeting was only for the 40-minute limit was only for 3 people. So I guess they changed that.
So this is good to know because this is that's a major advantage of the Google Meet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For one-on-one.
That's why we're having this, Sid, because most of our tutors are a lot of them are one-on-one, and they didn't want to restart a meeting after 40 minutes. So.
Oh yeah. Then in that case, Google is great. Yes.
So just to confirm, we can stay on with one person for within 24-hour period, so it can go 2 hours?
Yes, it can go up to 24 is the arbitrary limit they set.
Okay, thank you.
Limit, great.
All right, any other questions? Cool. So we're going to talk about screen sharing next. It's more or less the same in Google, but there is one cool difference. So at the bottom here on the 4th option, Google calls it presenting. And that's the same thing as sharing your screen. And then when you click on it, you have three main options. And you recognize these first 2 options. Zoom has those 2. Whether you share your whole screen or just a window, that's something we talk about all the time. But the 3rd option that Google has is sharing a single tab. To the best of my knowledge, this only works if you're using the Google Chrome browser, but for Google Meet, I would highly recommend using the Google Chrome browser. It tends to work the best. So if you choose to share just a tab, this is not like a window. So a window would be like, I'm sharing Google, or I'm sharing Word, or I'm sharing, Chrome, or I'm sharing Word. I'm sharing one of my applications, one of my windows. But sharing a tab is within Google Chrome. I'm only sharing one of these tabs, the ones I have up here, all of these little ones. So If you press sharing a tab, you'll see that you'll have those 4 actual individual tabs as options to share. The reason that this is useful as opposed to sharing your whole window is primarily for what they say here. If you're playing a video, which I know happens sometimes, like from YouTube or something like that, or even for slideshows, but mostly for videos, you would want to open that video as another tab and share the tab as opposed to sharing a whole window, just because when it just works the best. So when Google Meet has less to share and it's just a tab and that it can integrate with Chrome and get that tab, it just for some reason broadcasts it at much higher quality for videos and things like that. So I'll demonstrate what I mean real quick. If I share a window, you'll see that I can share my Zoom window or I can share the entire Google Chrome window. And if I share that entire Google Chrome window, the people in my meeting will see my screen. Even when I switch tabs, they'll see all of this up here,
Yeah.
which is fine for the most part. But if you share just a single tab, say I'm going to pick my slideshow. So they're only going to see this slideshow. And if I switch tabs, it'll say, I'm still sharing the slideshow. I'm not sharing this tab. You could change it if you want to, but it'll only see this slideshow. And that is mostly, again, useful for things like videos and animations. But the option is there in case you do need to do either of those things. But other than that, sharing your screen is very straightforward. You pick, if you want to do your entire screen, you click on your screen. If you want to do a window, you choose your window. And if you want to do a tab, you choose the tab. And then your participants or the people in your meeting will all see it just like you would on Zoom.
So I have a question about this because I've been trying to share. On Zoom, I could share my desktop and choose a document.
Yes.
And then she'll see it. But here, I'm having trouble. So I'd have to share my whole desktop. So it would be the window I would share and then pick something from there. I don't
So
know how to do that.
yeah, so when you share your document, do you press in Zoom, do you press the share screen button and then like your document just is one of the options that pops up right away?
Right. Or I could, I check share and
Mhm.
then my desktop might come up if I click on that. And then I
Mhm.
choose a document and we both can see it. And I can't do that in Google, it doesn't seem.
Is it like a Word document?
It's a Apple document, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that is the same thing as sharing a window.
Okay.
If you were to share a window and you had it open already and you just chose that window, it would have the same exact experience.
So I would see, in other words, if it was on my desktop, I would see the whole desktop. Then I'd have to click on that document I want to share.
Here, let me show you.
Because
I'm going to do it in Word because I'm on Windows right now. But if I make a blank Word document, can you oh, hold on. Apologies. So I went ahead and I made a blank Word document like here.
Right.
And then if I go to Google and I go to share a window, it'll be that same thing where you can click that document.
All right, now I got to that part. Okay.
Okay.
I clicked on that document.
Okay.
And then she said she saw it, but I didn't. I saw it as though it was on another window in the distance. It came out very fuzzy. It didn't come out clearly. I must be doing something wrong.
Are you seeing this?
Yeah, it's hardly visible.
So yeah, well it's showing this just because it expects, like, this is not what you're supposed to be looking at. You look at the actual window, the Word window here. This is just like a preview of what they're seeing for you. Does that make sense?
Okay, so I would, once I click on this, it should come up clearly for me.
It'll come up clearly for everyone. It's weird. They're kind of just showing you this to remind you that you're sharing your screen, but they expect you to be looking at the Word window here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Otherwise, the other thing you could do is email them the documents that you want them to share, right?
Yeah, you could, but if you want to be looking at the same thing, then you'd want to share it. The other option, now, this is what Google would prefer because you would stay within their ecosystem, is to use a Google document.
Oh,
And then, so the way you do that is you go to docs.google.com, and this works just like Word or any of the Apple ones. And then you could share just a tab, and then you could share that document as a tab because you have it open within Chrome. But that's just an option if you already use it. I wouldn't recommend switching just for this. It'll work. The window will work.
okay.
So, here's a question,
Uh-huh.
because she's been on for a while. When I'm presenting, I cannot see my student. Is there a split screen?
I don't think so. Let me try it. Let's go through this together. What if so if you present a tab, I believe you don't have much of an option. So, okay, what you could do is physically split your screen. So if I take my Google Chrome window and I take the Google Meet tab and I drag it out into a separate window like that,
Hmm.
then I could physically split my screen and have them open next to each other. And I could look at a student. I could maybe pin the student's video on the right side and have my other thing on the left side. And they'll only see the left side if I share just that tab. But unlike Zoom, it's not built into Google with that little pop-up where you can see the other video. So you have to sort of do it manually, but because it's within the browser, it's not that difficult to do manually. Does that make sense?
Yes, what I ended up doing was having to use another device. And at first, I got a lot of feedback from an tablet, so my phone worked. It was kind of clumsy, and I was just wondering if I was missing something.
Yeah, another device is a little bit clumsy. I have done that. Sometimes it's easier. Like right now, I'm on a very large monitor, so splitting my screen is not hindering me at all. In the past, I've been on a small Chromebook, and then if I split that screen any further, I'm straining to see anything because it's such a small screen. So then I've had to use another device because, yeah, Google doesn't have that like overlay option built into it, but you can manually make 2 Google Chrome windows and split your screen. And if you need help doing that, we could set up a meeting.
Sid, maybe can you show that again, how you split the screen?
Yeah, for sure. So this is how you would do it on a Windows machine. It's a little bit different on Mac, and I can talk about that at the end if you guys have questions.
Yeah.
I can get my Mac.
Yeah.
But so what you would do is you would unfull screen your Google Chrome, and then say you have your 2 tabs. You have your slideshow, and you have your meeting. What you would do is you would take this tab, you click on the words up here, and you click and you drag it out. And now you have 2 separate windows. So these are like windows that are completely separate, and and your computer sees them as 2 separate things, sort of. So then now on Windows, when you want to split your screen evenly in half, you can just click up here in this gray area on the top of the window, and you drag it all the way to the left side of your screen. When you do that, you'll see this little animation, and you'll be able to let go and lock it into the left side of your screen. And then it'll ask you, okay, what would you like to put on the right side of your screen based on what you currently have open? So I'll pick that other Google Chrome window, and now I have a 50-50 split. If you want to change the 50-50 split, you come into the middle here, and you get these little arrows that you can drag left and right.
Wow.
Like that. So it is a few steps, and I can demonstrate again if anyone would like me to. But that is how you would get 2 windows side by side. This is not unique to Google Chrome or to Google Meet. This is anytime you're doing something on a Windows computer. So like if I had Microsoft Word open, I can do the same thing, and I can drag it off to the side, and I can get half, or in this case, 3/4, because that's what I have set up.
So are you saying that the only way we can see the student is if we do a split screen?
While you're sharing your screen, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, I know it's not Google is unfortunately not a one-for-one replacement for Zoom. There are some setbacks, but the meeting limit is quite nice. So, all right. So that more or less covers the sharing your screen and the running a meeting. Before we get to scheduling, I didn't put this in the slideshow because I forgot to, but I want to talk about the whiteboard. So I know a lot of people use Zoom whiteboards, and Zoom whiteboards are really, once you learn where the buttons are, they're pretty straightforward. You get a blank white screen and everyone draws on it. Google has buttons that say whiteboard. So if you go over to the bottom right, you can go to this little shapes that look like shapes that kindergartners use. I don't know. They call it activities. And so this activities section allows you to do a few different things. You'll see breakout rooms, recording, polls are under premium, and you would have to pay for that, which is unfortunate. But the free one that is useful is whiteboarding. So when you click on whiteboarding, it doesn't actually make a whiteboard the way Zoom does. It wants you to use a Jamboard. Some of you may have used Jamboard before. You don't have to be in a Google meeting to use Jamboard. Some people even use Jamboard in Zoom meetings. But Jamboard is Google's whiteboarding tool, I guess you can call it. And it's a little bit of a strange experience when you're used to the Zoom whiteboard. So if you press start in your whiteboard, it first gives you this question because it wants to share this whiteboard with everyone else in your meeting. And so you can change it so that they can edit the whiteboard or they can just view the whiteboard. And you have to set that right now because what it's going to do is it's actually going to create this Jamboard in your Google Drive. So it actually sort of created a whole document for it. It does it very nicely because even though it's creating a whole separate document, it gives you a pop-up window so you can kind of just put it on top of your meeting or off to the side. And it gives everyone in your meeting an instant link to it. So, but they will have to go and click on this link and open this up in a separate window. Once you're here, it's a pretty decent whiteboard. It works. I mean, you can collaborate. Anyone can be drawing on this at the same time. You can draw. You can use post-it notes to put words down or thoughts down. And you can put like text boxes for like if you want to paste something in. You can put images, you can put shapes. There's definitely plenty to play around with on this thing. And you can also make multiple pages, which is very useful. So you could say you can have one person work on page 1, one person work on page 2, or you can just go through the pages as you need them in the meeting by just pressing this arrow up here, and then you can swap back and forth if you need to. This almost has the feel of a slideshow with all these different pages and all these different like tools on the side here. So this is Google's answer to whiteboarding. It's not exactly like the Zoom whiteboard. Once you get used to it, it's a little bit nicer than the Zoom whiteboard because it does save it in your Google Drive. So for whenever this meeting ends, it doesn't really matter. For the rest of times until I delete it, I can go to my Google Drive and I can access this whiteboard and I can even make changes to it. It lives completely separately from the meeting. So like if I were to go to my Google Drive right now, you would see that this is a Jamboard that's within there that I have access to as a file, and I can change it. I can use it in my next meeting if I wanted to. So it does kind of live like its own document, and it's very collaborative, but it isn't exactly the same experience, and it isn't as built into the meeting. So it's just something to get used to. Yeah, are there any questions about that?
Yeah, so once you do it, you can share it with your student.
So if you're in a meeting with your student and you create it within the meeting, it will automatically share with them. It'll pop up and say, would you like to share it with them? And you can just say
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I can show you that again. That would be this pop up here. It says your students will need access to your Jamboard. Would you like to share it with them? And you hit send. You can also create them in advance. If you created a Jamboard a week ago and then you went to Google Drive and you shared it with them, you can do that. And you can actually have the same automatic feature apply. Say you have 15 people in your meeting. You don't want to type in all of their email addresses, but you have an old Jamboard that you want them to see. You can press this option, choose from Drive. And you can go pick the old Jamboard from your Google Drive. So this is one that I had from a workshop a couple weeks ago. And then again, it'll send it to everyone in your meeting if you ask it to. And you guys will have access to it like this. And look, it already has stuff in it because I did that 2 weeks ago. So those options are there, for sure. It is pretty powerful, but it is a little bit different. So any
So,
other-
I have a question. This is pretty basic and maybe this is kind of silly, but I guess since everything in Google is integrated, do I
Mhm.
assume that both the tutor and the student need a Gmail account to access Google Meet?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Everyone will need a Gmail account or a Google account of some kind to access it. And additionally, I know Literacy NJ is mostly adult students, but some schools and universities who give you Google accounts will lock you out of Google Meet. So they'll probably need personal ones.
Okay, that's important for the students to know. Okay.
So yes,
Oh, I have one more question,
of
sorry.
course.
One time I started a Google Meet. I saw at the bottom attachments.
Yes.
I didn't see it the last time I tried. So in other words, you could add attachments, documents as attachments there, and it'll go to them with the meeting.
Yes.
But
So
I didn't see it last time.
so in this case, if you want to do attachments, there's a couple ways to go about it. Where did it, oh, I saw it too earlier. I used to see it under meeting details,
Mm.
but I don't see it anymore. You're right.
Yeah, I saw it when I started to schedule the meeting. It was at the bottom, and then I didn't
So
see it.
I know they have an option when you like ahead of time in Google Calendar. If you, yeah, if you upload an attachment to Google Calendar ahead of time, you
Oh.
can, it'll absolutely show up here. But there ought to be a way, I guess there isn't. I would say if you wanted to share documents mid-meeting, your best bet is to upload them to your Google Drive and then put the link in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I think, yeah, I used to see attachments under here, but I
Yeah.
don't see it
Yeah,
anymore.
I
So I'm
remember
gonna
that.
assume they either got rid of it or it only works ahead of time in Google Calendar.
Okay.
We can test that a little bit later too. Actually, we will test that because our next section is Google Calendar. So any last questions about stuff that happens inside a meeting? Because I'm going to move to scheduling it. We can always come back, but. All right, cool. So I'm going to end this meeting. And I'm going to go back to the Google Meet home screen. So this is what Google Meet looks like when you first sign in. And I mentioned earlier that you're probably going to end up using the schedule and calendar. So this is really cool. If you have, especially if you're running like a weekly class or something like that, or even a one-time meeting, if you just want to schedule it in advance, you guys will know, hey, it's going to be this Friday. This works great because first it gives everyone a calendar invite. People love their digital calendars, they live by them. If it's not on the calendar, I won't be there kind of thing. So I'm sure that'll be useful for some people, and it's also really good for recurring meetings. So in order to get there, you would hit new meeting and then schedule in Google Calendar. And then it's going to take you to your Google Calendar. Even if you don't use Google Calendar, you have a Google Calendar if you have a Google account because they make everything for you. So it'll take you to this screen. So this screen is a lot like creating any event you would create in your calendar. You're going to have to give the event a title. So I'm going to say that this is workshop with Sid. And it's going to be, you can pick a date and time like you would for any calendar event. So I'm going to say it's going to be next Friday at 6:30, and it's going to be an hour and a half. And so whatever, that's like how you would normally do any calendar event. But the cool thing is here, they've already given you a Google Meet link end button, and they're telling you that your Google Meet supports up to 100 people. And you can go ahead and invite those 100 people right here. You can, of course, give this link out to people who don't get the actual calendar invite. You don't have to type in everyone's email address here. You can still give out the link. Once you create the meeting, as I'll show you, you can even send it out after the fact. But if you have the email address of your guest, it is pretty convenient to just type them in. So I'm gonna invite my mom, I'm gonna invite my dad, just so there's some people here. And just to point out, the second I added 3 people, this pop-up came and said, your group call is limited to 1 hour because I have 3 people. Now, this only applies if the 3 people actually show up, to be fair, but they're gonna remind you, also they're trying to sell you on their premium plans, but they're gonna remind you that, hey, you have an 1.5-hour meeting scheduled, but you're only gonna be allowed to do an hour. So, I'm gonna say no thanks. And the cool thing here that I like a lot is once you add some guests here, you can go in and, oh, come on. Oh, I closed out my slideshow. That's my bad. Excuse me. Let me reopen that. Why don't I have the option anymore? Okay. What if I add myself? Okay. I'm not entirely certain why I don't have the option anymore. Because earlier today, in this screenshot, I did. Wonder if it's just a glitch.
What option were you looking for, Sid?
Right here, email guests. So earlier today, I was able to click this button and it sent all the people I invited an email saying, hey, you have this meeting at this time and this date. And it was wonderful. It was like automatic. I think if I save it first, it'll happen. So
And that's the same thing as you do save, and then it'll say, do you want to send it to everyone? Try it. You do save, and then it'll say,
wow, there it is. Thank you. I don't know why the option under the word guests is gone. But
yep, just do send. Mhm.
okay, so yeah, if you press save, you can choose to send an email to all the people that you added. And I just did, and it probably sent them an email saying that, hey, next Friday, you have a workshop. And they all get out, I just said it to myself, but yes, and they all get this Google Meet link and they can join and it shows up in their calendar and they can even RSVP if you want them to. So it is very smooth. If you like Google Calendar, you'll love this. If you don't like Google Calendar, the reason this is still useful is right here. You can add any sort of recurrence that you want. So say I want this to be weekly, I can just go weekly on Friday. And now I'll send an update email, but now you'll see that it's in my calendar every Friday and the link is available every Friday. I mean, the link is always available. It's sort of like personal to you, but it's automatic and it's all seamless. And now you have it, your participants get an email saying, hey, you're gonna have this meeting at this time, etc., etc. Actually, we can log into my email and see what that invite looks like. That's always useful to see the other side.
And the best part of that is you don't have to, your students or you don't have to search for it. Where did I put the link? If you go straight to your calendar, it'll be there and you could just start from there. A lot of times though, when I'm the host, I have to go, like with Zoom, I have to go back to Zoom as the host to start the meeting. It's the same with Google Meet. If you're the host, you have to kind of go to your main screen or you could do it from the calendar.
You can do it from the calendar. As long as you're signed into the right Google account, it'll figure it out.
Okay. All right, good.
So yeah, this is what the email looks like. If you do send someone that invitation email, it'll say, hey, this is your updated, or it wouldn't say updated if you don't make changes. It'll say, this is your invitation. This is who's coming. This is when it is. You can RSVP if you want to. And it gives you this Google Meet link. The really cool thing is that it actually probably already did it. Yeah, it'll add it to your Google Calendar. So again, this looks strange because I just showed you this, but I'm on the other account now. I'm on the person who was invited and it's in their Google Calendar as well. And they have the option to press join the meeting. So super seamless, super useful for scheduling in advance. Even if you don't use Google Calendar, it's great so that everyone is aware about the recurring dates. Okay, so now the email option is back. You just have to hit save first. Thanks for that tip. Yes, so if you press save, you can send that email. And that is that. So Google Calendar, I'll keep that open. Super useful. And the main way that Google is going to ask you to schedule the meeting. For those of you who use Apple Calendar,
Yeah.
there's a couple workarounds. One thing you can do is you can make it in Google Calendar anyway, and then you can go to the email that you get, and on your Mac or your iPhone, hit this down here in the bottom. It sends an attachment, an ICS file.
Yeah.
If you download that, it'll put it into your Apple Calendar. So this is like a calendar invite file, and it works regardless of the platform you're using. So you can download that, and then your iPhone will recognize, hey, I'm going to stick this in my iOS calendar. The other option is to just not use Google Calendar and to use the link option. Copy the link, and then you'll manually type out in an email, hey, these are all the dates and times, or whatever. Every Friday at 6 is when you need to press this link, and then you can put it into your calendar manually. It's not automatic per se, but you can absolutely do it. But those are the two main ways to go about doing it. And yeah, so that more or less covers what I had for Google Meet. I will take any questions about anything Google Meet related right now. And then if we have some more time, which I think we do, I can take questions about other things, any sort of Google problems or Zoom problems or tech questions you guys might have while we're all here together. That way you don't have to email me or anything like that.
Can you give us written instructions on doing the split screen? Can you send
Yes,
that to us?
I
Can
can
you
do
send
that.
that to us?
I can make those.
Okay.
I think Jana will be able to email those out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'll have a question, but it's not about Google Meet.
That's okay. We'll take that.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's all right. It doesn't seem like anyone has any Google questions, so.
Okay. When I get a PDF in my Google email,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't open it in my Google email, I have to go to my Apple Mail to be able to print it out. I can open it on Google Mail, but I
Okay.
can't print it out on. So it says